Hi, I'm Tess,
Hi, I'm Sarah, and we are.
the Happy Edit Sisters. Happiness isn't just being happy, it's an embodied feeling that starts with how we approach life, our actions, and our mindset. Everyone has a range of emotions, and that's a good thing.
Join us as we dive into what it means to be happy and how we build a foundation for happiness through different lenses.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Tess.
So, this week we're going to talk about boundaries. This is a topic that Sarah and I think is really interesting and also really important that we bring into our lives, right? And to kind of understand what the difference is between boundaries and barriers, and then how we can pull in autonomy and find a way to integrate these things into our life so we find balance for us, which I think is also really important. That it's not just we're not saying you need to find perfect balance, but you find balance for you in that moment. But before we dive in there, Sarah, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, thank you. Yes, I'm doing good. I've had a lovely morning. Went to the gym this morning, did a bit of a workout with a PT, so that was good. Really pushed me a little bit like outside my comfort zone, but that's always really helpful to get pushed that little bit further. Going up
Yeah,
on those
definitely.
weights a little bit.
Yeah. So I did like the exact opposite this morning. I led a restorative session, which, is really interesting because restorative yoga, like you think like, lots of cushions, blankets and like super relaxing. In many ways it is, but also in many ways it is kind of pushing you, but in a different way, right? Pushing you in a mental way because you're holding these poses for many minutes. And yes, they're comfortable. Well, hopefully they are, right? But other things might be coming up emotionally, right? You might be releasing thoughts or other things emotionally. So that can be kind of, an interesting push, right? It's just like a very different style of pushing. Um, but yeah, no, it's just I like that sort of juxtaposition, of like, yeah, getting it out energetically, and then sometimes it's just like getting it out more, yeah, maybe more. I'm totally blanking on the word. Not
It feels like a bit,
mentally.
yeah, it feels a bit more like meditation wise, doesn't it? Like kind of within the moment of like kind of just noticing.
Yeah,
Um,
noticing with compassion and then seeing if
yeah,
you can, just let it go and not hold on to it, not ruminate on it, you know? And so that
definitely.
very different ways of releasing.
Yeah, I remember when we was in Spain and I came and joined you, didn't I, on one of the so it's the first day that we've got there and I came and joined in on one of the yoga sessions and it was tough. It was tough. And I think it was quite a calm, chilled out one as well. And I was like, I can't hold this position for this long.
Yeah, but that was more of like a, like a hatha, like, you're standing or you're holding it there, you're using your muscles, and the restorative, it is very like you've got cushions, you've got pillows, you've got blankets, you've got, so it's like creating that comfort for the body, but then yeah, allowing the mind to kind of release from the physical body, right? That's the physical body releases through, and we process different things in that way. Anyway, let's dive in. Got a bit off track
We
there, but I
digress.
just I just really like that. I was like, oh yeah, I did the exact sort of opposite but the same. These differences, right? These differences of meeting ourselves where we are in the moment. And I think that is so much of what boundaries is, right? Of like really learning to meet yourself and say, what is it that we want? What is it that we need as well, right?
Definitely, definitely. It's about noticing what's right in the moment for you, isn't it, as well? I know that sometimes I do need just to be kind of still. And I think going for walks is something that I will do that in. And I know that's still quite active and doing something, but I'm very mindful now of just taking a moment wherever I am, of just stopping, even if that's for seconds, just kind of stopping in that moment. And I suppose it's like thinking about that balance, isn't it? kind of living quite a busy life, but just taking those little moments just to stop. But then I also need the opposite of where I need that real physical kind of release as well of being at the gym and really kind of like getting horrible and sweaty and like really thrashing it out. And I need that bit as well. Once I've got the part of not being able to breathe. Um but yeah, it is about that balance.
Yeah. And you know, and looking at yourself, you know, okay, how am I, right? And saying, okay, do I need that movement? Do I need that physical release? Do I need more of, you know, a different type of release of just letting go and calming, you know, and bringing myself into that moment? And I think, you know, when we're looking at boundaries, there's a lot of that in there, right? Because it's, you know, we might talk about boundaries in like in our relationships or in our work with ourselves. But boundaries are very, it's not like it's not, and this is where I like to call, you know, the boundaries versus the barrier, right? Like a boundary is flexible. A boundary is, as we're talking about, finding that balance, meeting yourself where you are, where a barrier is, it's a roadblock. It's stopping. It's that impersonal sort of disconnect between, you know, yourself and someone else, yourself and yourself and your work. It's that, yeah, as I said, like a kind of a roadblock, a stop to the growth in whatever the relationship may be. And so it's kind of exploring that within yourself as well, right? Because sometimes it can be hard to see when we have those moments of like, well, is it a boundary or is it a barrier, right? Like, am I being flexible in this or am I not? You know, and it's kind of going back to that sort of intuition of the moment and listening to yourself, right? And what is it that you need in that moment?
Definitely, definitely. As you was talking then, Tess, it made me think about like family therapy or systemic family practice. And one of the things that we kind of think about within that is, you know, are these boundaries semi-permeable? So actually, is there flexibility within them, or actually are they quite like rigid and, you know, I suppose like enmeshed a little bit as well, like, you know, because it gets really complicated then and quite complex. And it's really important, as you said, it's really important that there's a bit of flexibility within those boundaries, but we also don't want them far too kind of loose and all over the place in many ways. You know, we want a bit of structure, but we want that flexibility within that. So it just triggered that in my mind of family therapy as well, which is really interesting. It's really interesting when we think about all the crossovers, I think, between. So I was talking to someone today at the gym, and one of the things hopefully he's going to come on at some point and kind of do a one of the episodes with us. Is a personal trainer at the gym, and that was something that we was talking about as well, was about the similarities between things like yoga and wellness and then therapy as well. And it's really interesting, isn't it, when you think about that, I suppose, how closely linked it all is.
Definitely. Definitely. And that's, you know, that's one of the things that I really enjoy about this podcast as well. And, you know, what we're doing here is because we're showing that it's all connected, right? It's not necessarily, yes, they're separate practices, of course they are, you know, but in many ways we are doing very similar things. We're just looking at it from different lenses, right? So it is important that, you know, we're looking at this from these different lenses, because all of it is beneficial for looking at the whole of ourselves, right? Because we're not just one thing. We're not just a physical body. We're not just a mental body. We're not just, excuse me, we're not just, you know, one hat that we wear. We're lots of different things. We're everything. And then at the same time, if from my own, you know, point of view, like this awareness of of all of those things, you know, is to take us back to understanding that we're none of them at the same time, because we are beings living in an experience. And that is our truth. You know, our truth is that we're living, and everyone has their own experiences. Everyone comes with their own, you know, sort of, as you mentioned before in another episode, I think, you know, we're all these like an onion, you know, and we have all these different layers, and our different experiences add up to these layers. You know, in yoga, we might call this a citta vritti. So like we have like all these different thoughts and all these sort of things going on in our head, and it's beginning to start to unpick them and to understand, you know, what do I have that maybe is beneficial? What do I have that maybe isn't? How can I release the things that aren't? But at the same time, going back to that very, very center, and we're beings in a human experience, and everyone is. And so no matter, you know, what's happening, whether this might be, you know, a little bit controversial saying, you know, no matter what's happening in our lives with other people, that's not to say that we should let them, you know, stomp on us by any means, but, you know, taking it back to that understanding that because of their experiences, they are responding in a certain way. Because of our experiences, we're responding in a certain way. And, you know, that then takes us back to those barriers, right? Because of our experiences, and because of, you know, how we connect with other people, we need to be communicative in a supportive way for ourselves, right? To meet ourselves in that moment. And these barriers, they can change, thus the flexibility, right? And you know, very much it's creating that healthy conversation with yourself, that healthy conversation with those you're connecting with, and, you know, to be honest.
Definitely. And I think that honesty has to be with yourself first. Like, yeah, just really, really does. And, you know, I have quite a lot of conversations with clients about that, about how they're feeling, about their own process of whatever might be going on in their life, of how they're processing that, understanding what somebody else might be experiencing and what they might be bringing also to that relationship, you know, what their kind of process might be. But ultimately, we can't do anything about their process. We can't do anything about the other person's process. It's about what we can do for ourselves. And sometimes that's about being able to kind of say, do you know what? I need to separate myself from whatever they're going through. That doesn't mean we can't be there for them. That doesn't mean we can't care. But what we have to do, we have to protect ourselves in many ways as well, of being able to go, okay, but they're responding because of whatever they're going through, whatever their stuff is, that's what they're responding to. They're not necessarily responding to what I'm doing. And it's about kind of taking that back into ourselves and going, okay, so what can I do for me? What can I do that's going to support my own happiness, my own well-being? Because it's really difficult. And actually there's something really, I was going to say the word beautiful. I don't know whether that's a bit cheesy, but there is something really beautiful about when somebody recognizes that within themselves, of going, do you know what, actually, I'm not this horrible person because this person's telling me I'm a horrible person, if that's what they're saying, you know, or whatever they might be going through. Actually, that's their own stuff. So I'm gonna pass it back, and I'm gonna kind of concentrate on what's going on for me right now, and being able to kind of separate themselves in that way, because ultimately that healthy relationship has to start with yourself.
Yeah, I agree. And then definitely in that moment, like from, you know, my experience and working with people, like a lot of times a really good technique of kind of, as you say, kind of giving it back, right? And not holding on to it is going into yourself and compassionately forgiving yourself for buying into whatever stuff that they've, you know, that you've sort of accepted and from them and put onto yourself, you know, because a lot of times other people's perceptions, and that's not always, you know, this is life, right? I'm not saying that this is a bad thing. This is what we do. And, you know, just kind of acknowledging those things and saying, okay, like I forgive myself for buying into that. You know, I forgive myself for buying into feeling disconnected or lacking, or, you know, all of these different things that may be arising. And this is a process, by the way, everyone. This isn't like you do it once and then it's done. And if like, I mean,
yeah.
at least in my experience.
No, I agree. It's a learning curve that I don't think we you know, we're constantly learning how to do it.
Yeah. And, you know, constantly new things are coming up that, you know, that you might be noticing, like, oh, I didn't realize that, you know, from whatever experience, another experience we might have, like, oh, that might bring up something, you know, like, oh, wow, I'm responding in that way. Why am I responding in that way? You know, and like, and from, you know, my field is like, how am I feeling that in the body? And how can I release that? You know, how can I look to somewhere else, you know, maybe do kind of like a little titration of look somewhere else in the body and release it? Or how can I move in a way that helps me release it? And then, you know, so I don't necessarily have to, from, you know, my work, I wouldn't necessarily go into the story of it. I would notice how I'm holding it in the body and how I can release it from the body. Whereas, you know, when you're working with a therapist, you might do more of that, of going into the story, you know, why is this here and why is that there? And both aspects are important, right? And it's such, like, going back to the, like what we were talking about before, it's so beautiful that we have these abilities to connect with different lenses and into to healing ourselves in this journey of life, and then also creating this happiness and this, you know, balance. Once again, we're going to come back to balance within us and balance in that moment. You know?
Yeah, definitely. It is so important. And I mean, in a therapy session, just kind of seeing somebody recognize that, and recognize the, you know, that the importance of coming back to balance is it's a really, and again, I'm really going for the cheesy kind of phrases, but it's really
You
like
like the cheese.
magical moment, like if someone, yeah, I love the cheese as well.
Me too.
It's a really kind of magical and special moment of them just kind of going, oh yeah,
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 definitely.
and then noticing, you know, I love that we kind of come from different but the same kind of perspectives, Tess, as well, at the same time,
Yeah.
you know, of noticing where that is in the body. And then I suppose I then go to, okay, noticing, well, what's that telling us about our previous experiences, you know, our history? What's that telling us about that? You know, is it that we're responding to the moment, or are we responding to something else? Because quite often we're not necessarily responding to the moment.
Definitely.
You know,
It's those prior experiences.
yeah. And I remember
Yeah,
someone
exactly.
saying that going down, like, you know, Alice's kind of rabbit hole, that we're actually going down that, but we're responding to what's going on right now. But actually, we're probably responding to something that's further back in our past, whether that's, you know, without being the cliche therapist, but childhood.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's these attachments that we create, right? And the judgments that we create around those attachments. And, you know, it might be an attachment to something, or it might be aversion to something, and that's a type of an attachment, right? You're attached to the opposite. And then the judgments we create around these things, and that can be, of course, it can come from the past, you know. And it's like, it's having that sort of self-study of understanding, and maybe you do this with a therapist, maybe you do this on your own, of kind of having that internal contemplation of, you know, you don't necessarily have to, there doesn't have to be like I'm blanking on my word that I'm looking here, but like having this internal contemplation of these attachments, these judgments, and then looking to see how can I reframe them? How can I then release them, so that they don't they don't take me from my truth. And what is my truth? My truth is I'm a being living in a human experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is interesting. And then, like, once again, going back to these boundaries, when you take that awareness into your creation of your boundaries, right? And you're saying, okay, so like, what is it that I need in this moment to keep myself healthy, physically, mentally, emotionally, and what do I need to keep that moving forward and have this flexibility once again, but also constantly looking back in and saying, how can I continue to support myself? Do I need to as you were kind of saying earlier, like, do I need to just have this time to pause? Do I need to have this time to move and get things out? Do I need to connect with other people? And so when you're going through your day and you're kind of asking, like, and you have this internal dialogue with yourself, it's much easier to kind of say, okay, what is it that I really need? Like, am I holding on to a lot of things? Like, is that holding on? And I feel so really like anxious and upset and whatever. Like, do I need to move a little bit to get that out of me? And then start to slow things down to bring myself back into a calmer state, right? And or vice versa. If you feel like really sluggish and you're like, oh, I don't want to do anything, and you're just feeling really down, very much that dorsal response, right? Of your nervous system kind of going into the freeze response. And then starting slow there, maybe you do like I mentioned earlier, that restorative session of like really kind of trying to see if you can release it in other ways, and then start to build up the energy again, little by little. So it's always coming back to meeting yourself. And that's just that beautiful boundary and that flexibility of learning, listening, and respecting yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It is so important to listen to what we need. It's really important, and to just kind of take a moment to stop. We live very, very busy lives, and I think we've probably said that numerous times on, throughout the episodes, and we do live such busy, busy lives, and just taking that little bit of time out for yourself, just to stop, reflect, and notice what you need. Just notice what you need in that moment, and I think when we think about boundaries and barriers, that's really important, isn't it? Is just to go, what do I need right now? And then when we're responding or reacting to something, well, look, is it a response or is it a reaction? And actually, if we notice that we're very reactive, then we need to stop. We need to take a breath, and we need to respond instead. And that can literally be seconds that we need to do that for. 10 seconds to just go, right, just stop for a minute and then respond to something instead of reacting. And it takes practice. So it's not something that's going to happen straight away. It's not something that we're going to automatically be able to do. It's something that I still work on. Tess,
me too. Very much me too. It's a journey. It's a journey. It's the journey of life,
It really, really is. And, I work with lots of therapists as well. And I would put my hands up and probably say we're all working on the same thing of being more responsive than reactive.
Yeah, exactly. And it's and on one side, it's kind of frustrating, right? Because you're like, oh, I just want to be able just to be responsive, but and not in that reactive state. And and as you say, like, the more you do it, the more practice you get, the easier it does become. But at the same time, like, notice that as part of the journey and part of the beauty of life, right? Like, it's not, when we're exploring these things, when we're exploring our connection for ourselves, and these ups and downs that we have, it's take the whole thing as the picture, right? As the beauty, and not just as that end goal. Because it's all part of it. It's all part of learning and understanding ourselves, and exploring what life means, and exploring what other people mean to us, and what we need. And through this, as I said, as we said before, like, because life changes, because we change, because all of that then our boundaries change as well. And and our season that we're living in, all of these things are adaptable. And so it is always about that, coming back in. And I just want to make a comment here as well. Like, we also need to be very respectful that other people are going through this.
Definitely.
And so, like, and it's not always easy. Of course, it's not always easy. And, we might be on different, like, sort of steps of where we are in this journey, a different word on the page, let's say, and sometimes it's difficult, to have these conversations with another and be like, hey, like, this is what I'm working on. Can you support me? And this is difficult for me. Can we have a conversation, like, about what you need and what I need? And because a lot of times I'm just thinking, from, like, being in a marriage, right? This is, like, so important, because we're different people. We have different experiences. We have different upbringings. We might, you might even have the same upbringing, but you have different experiences of different things because of how you've experienced them and how you've processed them, and so just to be, conscious that it's not just one-sided. Like, we need dialogue is important. Dialogue with ourselves, dialogue with the other person, or your work, or whatever it is that you're creating this boundary around.
Yeah, definitely. I love that, Tess. I really do. It just reminded me of kind of like that ownership of what we say as well, and being mindful that it has an impact. So it is about owning our own thoughts and our own feelings, but also being understanding that actually the way that we might deliver that then may then have an impact on someone else. So we have to be mindful of how that information, or that communication, in what, because it might not be information, it might be the way we communicate something, is delivered. And about that respect for yourself, but also for other people. I think we need a little bit more of that in the world. I wish there was, like, a magic wand that we could kind of go, come on, guys, let's just respect ourselves and each other.
Oh, I know. Me too. I wish it were easier. But it is, like, the more you do it, the easier it becomes, right? And so, and maybe that's, that kind of leads into the happy edit of the day, right? Of first, like, take a moment each day this week to tune in. What is it that you need? And how can you, go forth in your own life with yourself, of, like, giving back to yourself something little, whether that's, moving, whether that's slowing down and pausing. And then on top of that, maybe, connecting with a loved one and say, hey, this is something I'm working on. And can you support me in it? This is something I want to do. I want to improve upon in my life, or, and how I'm connecting with you in it, and so I guess it's a twofold happy edit this week. But I do think that, we can all use this practice, Sarah and myself included. Okay, guys, like, this is not like we know better, because, it's easy to say it, but it is it's a very different thing to put it into practice. And so it is a practice.
Yeah, definitely. Because we definitely don't know better. And, it's something that, I can definitely say for myself is that, I continuously need to practice that and to kind of work on, which is really important. I don't know if we ever stop kind of learning and practicing and just taking those moments. So I love that.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. And, as usual, if you have any questions, if you want any support, please reach out to Sarah and I. And we'd also love for you, if you are enjoying these podcast episodes, to hit that follow button on your favorite podcast app. And maybe even leave us a review. So if you want to leave us a review on iTunes, for example, please do. We'd love to hear how you are, enjoying this podcast. If you're enjoying it, hopefully you are. And yeah, just reach out and stay connected.
Definitely, definitely. And if there's a topic that you think, oh, it'd be really interesting if Tess and Sarah had a little conversation about that, please let us know. And yeah, we'd be more than happy to have suggestions. And then we'll have a conversation and let everybody kind of listen in on that conversation as well.
Definitely. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye. At the Happy Edit podcast, we're mindful that the podcast is not in replacement of therapy. If you do need further support, please do contact us on our contact details in the show notes. And we're more than happy to offer further support and guidance and direct you to places like the counselling directory or therapy directories. If you do also need further support, we would also recommend you contacting your primary healthcare provider. Thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you all soon.